Welcome to the We Watch This Movie podcast, where we sit down and dissect the latest and greatest in movies. I'm Dan, joined by the man with over 2,000 films in his watch list, Jackson. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm well. How are you, mate?
Very well, mate. Thanks for everyone tuning in to our first 3 episodes. We've had a great reception. We're global, Jackson. We've been listened to in over 25 countries, and it's been great so far. You enjoying yourself?
I can't believe anyone would listen to this, let alone 5 different countries.
25 different countries, Jackson.
Oh my God!
With COVID, unfortunately with COVID-19 locking us indoors, we're away from the cinemas, so we've got to switch things up a bit. So today we're going to take a look at Contagion, 2011 pandemic film, fits the bill for what's going on. And then in the future, Jackson, will probably do some older films, some classics.
Perfect.
Beautiful. Also, thanks to our sponsor for today's episode, Displate. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Jackson, walk us through the synopsis for Contagion.
It's figuring us out faster than we're figuring it out.
It's mutated.
Soon after returning from a business trip to Hong Kong, Beth Emhoff dies from a flu or mysterious infection, and her young son is also taken suddenly that same day. Left distraught in hospital, Beth's husband Mitch is proven to be immune while quarantined. This sets off the spread of a deadly global contagion. Word quickly makes its way to the doctors and administrators at the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, but several days pass before anyone realizes the extent or gravity of this new virus. The CDC teams must first identify the type of infection in question and find means of combating it, a process that will likely take several months. As the contagion spreads to millions of people worldwide, societal order begins to break down amidst mass panic, looting, and violence. Here's hoping that's not prophetic of what's to come in the coming months.
Jackson, Contagion. We shouldn't laugh. Contagion. Interesting film for us to dissect today. I've got a feeling this might be a long one. What were your initial thoughts?
This was very chilling, very frightening. It was a very uncomfortable watch for the first 15-20 minutes. A lot of people coughing, a lot of people putting their hands in places you wouldn't think twice about. Their hands picking up glasses. In today's circumstances, it's very scary, but really gripping stuff. It's a talented director at the helm of this project. It's far from his first movie, and this ultra-realistic picture is scary. I don't know if I want to recommend it right now. If you're someone who might suffer from a bit of, might get swept up in the hysteria or suffer from a bit of panic about what's going on in the real world, maybe give this one a miss for the meantime.
Definitely.
But it is really entertaining stuff. Super tight production, good script, an amazing all-star cast that are clearly giving it their all. What did you think?
I'm actually the opposite side of the spectrum here, Jackson. I didn't hate it by any means. I just didn't think it was this well-rounded package that a lot of the reviews have said, including yourself. I just thought it got bogged down in terms of there were so many characters throughout the film, and I guess they were showing that to showcase how this thing can spread and knock people off just like that. But it was bogged down by that where you weren't attached to any of these characters. Even Matt Damon's character, I didn't really feel connection to him or his daughter, and I just felt like it has a lot to say but doesn't say it in an engaging way.
I'll agree with most of what you got to say there. The film was lacking that core emotional center. It certainly believed Matt Damon's character Mitch was that, and we did get quite a touching moment towards the end of the movie with him. You're right, it does jump around a lot. There's a lot of this hyperlink cinema where this character's story blends into this character's story, and that's very characteristic and very typical of the director Steven Soderbergh's style. For me, though, that's a real strength. That really opens up the scope and really gets this feeling like an epic story. Parts of the production, particularly how it was filmed, I'm sure you're going to go into it as well, on a Red MX camera, and some of the natural lighting kind of grounds us in reality and has us feeling very isolated, very claustrophobic in some of these scenes and some of how it's framed. Yet the fact that we go from so many different countries, so many different situations, that it kind of has us right there with the characters amidst the chaos, amidst the panic. For me, while it certainly comes across as cold at times, is a strength. I enjoyed it. It's a tough watch with what's going on right now, though.
It is. And I can't recommend it to people that do get swept up. But like you said, it was a very realistic,
super realistic film.
And a lot of research obviously went in, and it was almost very eerily similar to what's going on now, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It's far from right now we are in the midst of a very frightening viral pandemic, and it's far from the first one we've faced even in the last couple decades. So there's plenty of materials, scientific research that could back up this production, and a lot of this movie was critically lauded for just how well it stuck to a lot of the scientific accuracy. Parts of it do come across feeling a little too clinical. There's some scenes with some scientists working when there's so much techno-babble coming at us. It does take you out of the movie for a moment. It is quite cold, but that's kind of the tone that they're going for. There aren't these real Hollywood uplifting moments. It sounds like to you that it could have benefited from that, maybe something stronger at its core. But when we've got so many plot threads and so little time to really delve too deeply into any of them, I did like that it kind of kept us at, all right, this is where we should be centered around right now. This is the outbreak. This is how the government and the world's going to deal with it. And I loved how we explored some of the different themes around, we don't want to close this shopping center because it's around the Thanksgiving season. That's a busy shopping season. Here, there might be a potential vaccine pushed by a conspiracy theorist. And is he trying to be shut down because the government don't want it to spread? The pharmaceutical companies don't want it to spread. What is really going on? I loved how it had us second guessing a lot of what was on screen.
We did get perspectives from different people, from the politics to the journalism to the everyday man. So that was an interesting take where you could see all those different perspectives. But like I said, I couldn't connect with any of these characters because they were gone before you knew it. But again, that adds to the effect the film was going for, of how rapidly this could spread and how dangerous this is. I thought the theme that I got out of the film mostly was that humans are more dangerous than the actual virus, the panic and the paranoia.
Absolutely, paranoia is the perfect word for it.
Currently, this film, Jackson's number one on IMDb and Letterboxd.
Whoa!
It's burst up the rankings. Obviously, we know why. And I don't know how critically acclaimed the film was, but I'm looking at the reviews. They were somewhat average from the normal viewer, but critics loved it.
Yeah, critics loved it. This came in with an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes from about 240 reviews, and it's sitting right now at around a 70 on Metacritic from about 40 official reviews. So we've got to take that with a grain of salt. There could be some more recent reviews looking back on it, maybe more positive, considering just how prophetic it is and how closely it gets aligned into some of the real world events.
I feel like there's been a flood of good reviews in the last, 4 weeks, let's say.
Certainly, there is a lot to like in this movie. Even if, as you said, it just didn't quite hit the mark for you, there are some really strong performances, and Steven Soderbergh's fingerprints are all over it, and he is a talent.
And he's the director of photography on this as well. He's an interesting director.
Yeah, under a pseudonym.
He actually does the cinematography as well for a lot of his films, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's been shooting his films digitally now for the last few decades. Something that's only become common practice in the last 10 years or so. And as mentioned before, he shot this on the Red 1 MX camera, which he'd previously done another Red camera total shoot, one of the first shoots ever on it, for The Girlfriend Experience, a bit of an experimental drama film with then porn star Sasha Grey.
Spoiler alert. And we might just let you guys know that we are just going to dive straight into spoilers here. Being a 10-year-old film, Jackson, I think a lot of people have maybe already seen it or have recently seen it, so we're going to just dive in straight into the spoilers. Obviously,
it's hard not to mention them when Gwyneth Paltrow is dead in the first 5 minutes.
Well, that's the thing. I actually watched the trailer because I hadn't seen this film until yesterday. I watched the trailer, and she actually was shown to be dead in that as well. So that was part of it, part of their storytelling. Obviously, in the bio that you read as well. That was very disturbing, those opening, 10 minutes with her and then the child dying as well. I thought it was
jaw-dropping stuff, wasn't it?
very impactful, and Matt Damon coming to grips with what's just happened to his family, how it's been broken apart from this pandemic, this virus.
Yeah, it's a really crazy start to what's going to be a very cold at times, a very grim affair. It certainly gets harrowing, and one plot thread that seems to get resolved in a pretty uncomfortable way is Kate Winslet, who's very much this real force of nature. She's working really hard to battle this epidemic, and as she's working really hard in the field to battle this epidemic on the front lines, working with some of the local politicians to set up in these huge basketball and university gymnasiums, these recovery and rehab centers for some of these people who are battling a disease that kills them within a matter of days. It's frightening stuff, and sure enough, maybe by the 35, 45-minute mark, she's gone from the movie, ends up dead, wrapped in plastic.
Was it that early on that she was gone?
It was pretty damn early. It might have even just been an hour into the picture, but I was watching it just at that point, jaw on the floor, thinking, my God, she's out of this. What is going to come next?
She was the main character up until that point, and I was enjoying her dialogue and her story arc. And then she obviously got ill, and after that it was downhill, wasn't it?
Very quick.
I like the scene where there was a guy that came in sick, and he wanted a blanket, or he needed some heat, and she passed him his jacket, and that was the last thing we saw of her, wasn't it?
Yeah, she was very, very selfless, a really strong character, especially for the first part of that film, someone for us audiences to hang on to, and we saw a lot of what was going on with this viral outbreak from her perspective. To her, it's clear that she was certainly a caring person, and it was sad to see her go.
This was an all-star cast, wasn't it? We have Lawrence Fishburne, we have Matt Damon, Kate Winslet, Jude Law. Who else was there? Bryan Cranston.
Bryan Cranston popped up for several scenes, a little underused, particularly in 2011, when that's him at the height of his fame, finishing up in Breaking Bad.
Is that Breaking Bad, 2011? Is that long ago?
It's that long ago, believe it or not.
Wow, that's crazy. So he was very underutilized. It felt he only had, 2 scenes?
Yeah, and he wasn't in the top billing, and wasn't in much of the promotional materials for the film either. But I mean, with such a star-studded cast, you can only put so many names on a poster. We also had Marion Cotillard, so she was fresh off Inception when this was released too, and she had quite an interesting role in this.
Yeah, what did you think of her character and how it played out?
Yeah, very interesting character arc. She goes on this emotional journey when it's clear that the work that she's doing, she's very dispassionate to some of the people that she's working with in Hong Kong. One of what proves to be her kidnappers tells her this story of how his whole village is being torn apart by this virus, and his mum's just become sick with it, and you can kind of see that she's battling what to say. She wants to continue working to find out where was the index patient, who's patient 0. We learn it's Gwyneth Paltrow, and sure enough, she winds up kidnapped and spends 4 or 5 months locked away in this village in Hong Kong.
Yeah, that second half, that second act is where it started to lose me, the film. Probably a little bit after Kate Winslet exited, I started to get a bit of fatigue. It was just so depressing and so cold, as you say. Harrowing. It left me wanting a bit of lighthearted or something lighthearted or some
we needed a few jokes, didn't we?
Well, maybe not jokes. It's set in its genre, but it just needed something to lift me in that second half, because I was feeling quite down, and the dialogue was so heavy. It was just
even how it was shot and how it was filmed with Soderbergh's natural lighting. It had this real sense of this real clinical feeling. There's a lot of
didn't it?
There was
really noticed that.
There's these like hospital gown and doctor's gown greens early on that it had me feeling sick as I was watching. I'm looking at these characters, and it's very realistic, but I started to feel ill early on, and then by that second act, some of those colors went away. We got some brighter stuff. It was bizarre, but hey, I liked it.
Yeah, they definitely went with a realistic approach. With a film like this, you go one of two ways. You go realistic or you go zombies.
It did kind of feel like a B movie at points.
You think?
Yeah, sometimes we had some of these techno-babble dumps from Jennifer Eel's character as she's working towards finding a vaccine, and I'm like, hang on, what did she just say? I always had to rewind there for a moment.
What did this get at the box office? What return?
So this returned 136 million at the global box office from a budget of 60 million. When I read a budget of 60 million, I thought, what the hell? How did this cost so much money? It looks low budget, doesn't it?
I think where the budget came was from those shots with all the extras, where there's like hundreds of extras in some scenes with Matt Damon where there's a crowd,
the looting,
the riots and all that sort of stuff. I think that's probably where it came. And then maybe some of those wide shots in city areas where they had to clear the whole place as well. But
you're absolutely right. This whole film was shot on location. I couldn't tell you how many countries we went to,
but
everything was on location, and that is expensive stuff.
We moved around a lot in that first 20, 30 minutes, didn't we?
We bounced around
Switzerland and San Fran, I believe. We were going everywhere. It was exciting. It had me enthralled in those first, as I said, 45 minutes, first act. But yeah, there's something about the second act, and I don't want to bash it for not taking the Hollywood trope of sort of an uplifting ending or twists and turns. It took a very realistic approach, but unfortunately, it just left something to be desired. It left a sour taste in my mouth by the end credits.
Well, it's certainly a sour movie, especially when we've got scenes of dead people being thrown into these mass graves and being tossed in by others in total hazmat suits. It's snowing. It's terrible. Oh, it's terrible. It's like, is this the worst Christmas movie or something? Goodness.
Especially at a time like this. We
probably didn't need to watch it this week.
No. What did you think of the music and the score? I thought it was a very interesting take and not one that I actually really enjoyed. I usually look for these scores, as I've said before. I
listen?
Listen into these scores with more attention to detail than the average viewer. And for me, it didn't fit what was going on. I felt like the music was more for a mystery thriller or something. I don't know. It was very interesting music. Did you pick up on that or?
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. There were some bizarre cues, especially towards the later half of the film in the second and third act, where we still felt like the score was trying to tell us there was more plot to unravel when really we were seeing something naturally play out. Early on, I thought Cliff Martinez's score was fantastic. It was this real pulsating electronic synth affair. There was these heavy bass coming in that was like, okay, we're on the brink of something really scary. It was very, very thrilling. And then the score was missing in some areas where I thought it really could have helped. There was these lengthy dialogue chunks between characters when I was waiting for it to come back. It probably wasn't his best work, and certainly not his best work in a Steven Soderbergh film, but I still felt it was effective enough. Not memorable, but effective.
I felt when the music was at its heights, or where we could really notice it was those sort of montage spots at the front, middle and end, where you get those...
The bookend scenes with Gwyneth Paltrow?
Yeah, and all those sort of scenes. Yeah, that's the thing. Gwyneth Paltrow was the top billing for this film, was she not? And she literally had two scenes.
It was very effective, though. What a way to kick off your film.
No, true. And I liked what she put into the film, but she definitely wasn't top billing. This was Matt Damon's film, I would have said, in terms of screen time. He was probably
what about Lawrence Fishburne?
Lawrence as well. I was going to say Lawrence a close second. I think these two were probably dominating the screen for the most part. Two entirely different roles. Matt Damon, for me, he didn't add much. What were your thoughts?
It certainly was a very understated performance. He came across as this everyman. He was out to protect...
As he always does.
Well, not always. The guy, the guy does have some range. In some of these Steven Soderbergh films, we get some interesting stuff from Matt Damon. This is his 6th film working with Steven Soderbergh, and it was 2011. He's gone on to do more since. He does have a real great leading man quality, particularly in some of these things where he's not loud, he's not coming across, and he's got some other actors on screen to bounce off. With so many different characters in the movie, it would have been great to see some more clear motivations from some of them. We had Jude Law playing this very interesting role as a conspiracy theorist who, by the end of the film, it turns out, had his own ulterior motives, despite trying to... With so many different characters at play, I would have appreciated some clearer motivations and some time spent with maybe 3 or 4 central characters, not 7 or 8 that we saw. It would have been great to see an actor like Bryan Cranston being given a lot more to work with. It was cool to see Elliot Gould pop up in another Steven Soderbergh film. He was in the Ocean's trilogy. Mm-hmm. What did you think of Jude Law's turn as the conspiracy theorist?
He always plays villains every film I've seen him in. For some reason, he's never good. So I was sussing
and he always seems to turn as well.
He's very typecast, actually, isn't he? When you think about it.
He's such a smooth operator, that's why.
He's a great actor, though. I liked his role in the film. I wanted to see more of him. This is the thing. I wanted to see more of Jude and Kate and Brian. And if those 3 had more screen time, we really fleshed out those characters, I think we would have had a better film here. I know it's all about the pandemic and the virus and how it can affect these different characters and that, but that doesn't always make for a good film, even if it is realistic. Most of Lawrence Fishburne's scenes, for me, they just didn't hit the mark. And same for Matt Damon. I was like literally nearly falling asleep with this dialogue. Just wasn't engaging for me at all. For Matt Damon's character, I would wanted to see more of a connection with him and her daughter. Really showcase his love for the daughter. I didn't feel it.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you there, Dan. We had a lot of these scenes that they serve the narrative purpose, but not an emotional purpose. Matt Damon's scenes and his touching moment towards the end of at the end of the movie with his daughter, where they're celebrating what would have been her prom night, despite everyone being in lockdown. Yeah. That was a highlight. By that point, it was a little bit too little, too late.
You're correct.
I still enjoy what we got.
Did you think the payoff was there? I just didn't think it was there for that prom scene.
It was there. If we hadn't have had the shots of Matt Damon looking at the photos Gwyneth Paltrow took while she was in Hong Kong, some of his learning of what had happened, that was kind of the first time we saw his character really truly break down. For me, that scene did still hit. Maybe something else similar from Lawrence Fishburne, who had a heck of a lot of screen time, would have helped too.
I just think it was a little sour, as I said, with the entertainment value from the numerous underdeveloped characters, and that just added to the film's detriment, unfortunately. For me, there was some terrifying moments, though, in the film. I'll give it that. As you said, the bodies being thrown away, and the last scene where we see how this virus came about, I thought that was really confronting.
Oh, it felt like it was stripped straight from a B movie or something, like we're seeing a villain's return, setting up a sequel. It was very jarring, but it worked. It was effective.
It worked. It was effective. I really like that scene. And with the film, we see this pandemic, this outbreak, and everything that comes with it. But we said it touches on some things that we're seeing right now with COVID, but obviously the mortality rate for this one was 25%, nowhere near what we're seeing for COVID. So that's one thing we can be thankful about.
For sure.
And obviously no riots or anything. But like I touched on before, the paranoia of people that we see in this film, that's one strength that we do see in this film, where we see the panic, the riots, Matt Damon telling the boyfriend, don't come in. This sort of stuff, that's what I wanted to see more of. And maybe that is Hollywood tropey, going down the War of the Worlds, zombie style. But that's what I find entertaining, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was entertaining. Were you surprised to hear social distancing only 1 hour into the movie?
I was surprised. That was crazy. It just hit on so even with the bats and the pigs, and just the way everything came about. It was so.
What did you think of some of the earlier shots ripped straight out of a germaphobe's nightmare, where we had hands on hands and we were touching hair? How uncomfortable! Were you sitting there squirming like I was in that first 15 minutes?
Oh, mate,
Like,
I am a
we were just
germaphobe.
like, oh,
I
no.
am a germaphobe. I had to turn away at one point. No joke. That is my worst nightmare.
I'm working a job at the moment where we're going through bottles of hand sanitizer and gloves and facial masks every single day, and watching
Mate.
that, I was closing my eyes.
What did you think of the different perspectives being shown? And, seeing Lawrence Fishburne, seeing Bryan Cranston's... Well, not Bryan Cranston. Seeing Lawrence Fishburne's perspective, seeing Kate Winslet's perspective, Jude Law's. How did that come together for you?
It was great to keep momentum driving, especially early on, and the score kept that blood pumping. I felt my heart racing in that first 20-25 minutes as we learned that the virus was spreading from airport to airport to country. It did mean that some characters left the movie for half an hour, or in Kate Winslet's case for for what felt like 70 or 80 minutes of it. Towards the end there, she was gone. Maybe would have liked to have seen Jude Law and some other people more, but that is really a staple of Steven Soderbergh's style. It's worked for him before in movies like Traffic, where he's picked up the Best Picture Oscar, and it does work here. I mentioned how it brings everything out in this epic scale, yet still keeps things ultra realistic.
For me, I also thought that the vaccine was just found out of nowhere. There was no real build up to it.
Mate, there was 144 days of searching.
I understand, but we didn't see the build up. Like, I know we were referencing it throughout the film, but I wanted to see her in the lab really getting in there.
We had a lot of lab shots. We had oxygen getting pumped in the suits. Yeah, we had a fake vaccine getting pushed by Jude Law.
But maybe that would have made it more entertaining, showing the struggle of finding this vaccine and the ups and downs it can cause, and the battles that you have to take, and testing it on animals or whatever you're testing it on.
Oh, we did that. We had some monkeys dying. That was a bit jarring.
Yeah, but
we had enough. We had points being raised of how long is this going to take to test, and we did get Jennifer Eel injecting herself with the vaccine as a human trial, and then visiting her sick dad. I liked that. That was one touching moment.
Yeah, that was a really good scene as well. I really enjoyed her.
It was very touching.
It was touching. It was a touching scene. In terms of the pacing and the editing, Jackson, that was one thing I would say was a strength of the film, especially for that first half. Even towards the end, the pacing wasn't too bad. I never felt it dragged along. The only thing that dragged for me, as I said, was the writing.
Yeah, it was certainly heavy at times. You said a lot of heavy dialogue, and that kind of at times had things moving at not a glacial pace, but just a sludge. Like we were gripped, we were with the story, but we kind of felt like we were in there too much. We want this pandemic to be over. We really feel for these characters, and maybe watching this with what's going on in the world isn't the best time for it. We want a bit of an escape. I have to agree. Who wrote this?
No idea. Tell me.
What a great lead-in. This one was written by Scott Z. Burns, who had previously collaborated on The Informant with Steven Soderbergh, and it also starred Matt Damon. He'd gone to work again with Soderbergh on Side Effects and The Laundromat, and he's got a writing credit on the upcoming No Time to Die.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When are we going to talk about those Bond movies?
Well, as you know, Jackson, we have an unreleased version of our Casino Royale review.
What? This is the first I've heard.
Yeah, we do. I'm telling the world now. We've got an unreleased version of our Casino.
You can't hype people up like this. It might not be out for years.
I know.
Hopefully never.
We might not ever hear it. It's going to be released. It is one of the greatest 50-minute sit-downs you'll ever hear, just like now. It's
God,
one
if
to
it's
watch
anything
out
like
for.
now, we're in big trouble.
But yeah, that's one to look forward to. I think we'll tackle those Bonds before No Time to Die. What do you think?
Well, hopefully we've got plenty of time today to talk about those. So the idea for this movie came during the production of The Informant. And originally, Soderbergh and Burns wanted to work on a biopic about Leni Riefenstahl, who was the German film director that gave the world the true cinematic classic Triumph of the Will. So during the pre-production process, Burns actually collaborated with the epidemiologist, Larry Brilliant, who was renowned for his work on eradicating smallpox. And after watching some TED Talks, Burns had this to say about some of Brilliant's work. The point of view of people working within that field, battling these crises and pandemics, is that it's not a case of if something like this is going to happen, it's a case of when. And hearing some of those words are pretty prophetic for what's going on here today.
This is the thing. Would you recommend watching this film at a time like this? Because it is very confronting.
Confronting is a great word.
Very confronting because you're looking at a possibility of what could happen. No, seriously, similar things could happen, and it's a very strange time for us. We're locked down in our houses right now. We're talking remotely. You've got everyone working from home pretty much. It's not a film a lot of people will want to see right now because they've got to be confronted with
I guess
possibilities
it is.
of the future.
Number one on IMDb, and
it has piqued some interest. It has piqued some interest, hasn't it?
It has, and you're right. It's a tough watch. We have said that maybe it's not quite the best time. If this wasn't going on, would the film still be as popular?
No way.
There we go.
No way. And you can see by the reviews, what was it, 60% on IMDb?
A 60% user score. Clearly, audiences haven't quite taken to this film like critics have. Which I can't really blame them for. It is a little bit of a slow burner, and it's
a slow burner.
It's very frightening, especially early on. I can imagine plenty audience members switching this off 10, 15 minutes in after feeling very uncomfortable with a lot of germaphobe nightmare shots and Gwyneth Paltrow kicking the bucket. That was tough stuff.
And don't get me wrong, there's been slow burn films that I've absolutely loved. One that springs to mind is Foxcatcher, which is a film with Steve Carell and Channing Tatum.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's a really really interesting film. Very slow, but I loved it. So that's not why it got bogged down for me. But I know a lot of people, be wary. This is a slow film. If Foxcatcher's at a 10 for slow, this is a 9, 8 or 9. It does go at a snail's pace, but still the pacing is okay.
Very engaging.
Very engaging.
What do you think of the editing throughout this? There's some really interesting cuts, especially in the fight scene between Lawrence Fishburne and Jude Law, where there were no two shots that were the same.
I liked that.
And it was kind of not quite over the shoulder. I mean, we had someone in a studio and someone talking via satellite, but the reverse shot was way out of whack. It kept things very unsettling.
Kept things unsettling, kept things interesting. That's something that I wanted to see more of. That sort of style, those camera shots, and same with the montages.
Maybe less of those long tracking shots that we got. People walking down hallways. We didn't quite need so many of those.
How many shots do we have of just straight dialogue with uninteresting backgrounds in a lab or in an office?
It's hard when that's the point.
I understand, but there's ways around it, and there's ways that they could have sped up that dialogue. I feel like they touched on points over and over, and some of Lawrence Fishburne's sort of dialogue some of it wasn't needed, in my opinion. I feel like we could have sped things up by probably 15 minutes. We could have cut this film by at least 15 and still delivered the same result.
It was a big punch at 108 minutes, let alone sped up. It was a real hard punch.
What did you think of that ending? Did you think it paid off after, obviously after Matt Damon with the pig and showing that scene? What did you think of that? I really liked that scene a lot.
I didn't like that ending sequence as much as you did.
No,
I felt leaving the movie on a much more
somber
classic, much more somber and classic Hollywood ending, with Matt Damon's daughter celebrating Mitch's daughter celebrating her fake prom night with her boyfriend, or I guess soon-to-be boyfriend Andrew, would have been a lot nicer. And then, we find out how it started. We've got a bat and a pig, and it passes from this person to that person. At that point, for me, it just felt like we're getting hit over the head again and again and again. But it did tonally fit with the film. Not how I would have wrapped it up, not what I enjoyed. Tonally, it worked.
Was this Matt Damon's film for you? Was this Laura Fishburne's film? Was this Steven?
I think it's Steven Soderbergh's film for sure. Any one of his movies, they really are his. Aside from a few standout movies with the likes of Matt Damon that's in this, or someone like George Clooney, very much his movie.
Die.
Right. And he says, can I go talk to her?
Mr. Amoff, your wife is dead.
What are you talking about?
Okay.
What happened to her? What happened to her?
So we're not going to talk about replacing our two lead actors, our usual segment, Jackson, because it just doesn't tie in. And obviously,
everyone's in it.
Everyone's in it. So we're gonna skip that one, but we will touch on our favorite scene. Jackson, what was your favorite scene? And this is a film where you're not really thinking of a favorite scene because it all blends into one in this package. This interesting, harrowing package. But is there a standout scene for you? Is it that touching scene that we were talking about before?
No, I love some of the beautiful shots of Jude Law strutting around the streets of San Francisco in his
in a barren wasteland.
Yeah, in a barren wasteland in his hazmat suit. It was something straight out of some other apocalyptic films, similar to I Am Legend. You mentioned
That's what I was going to say.
You mentioned some zombie movies, and I loved how we even had some of that San Francisco landscape where he's walking down those steep streets.
Yes,
and it really gave us a feel for this is happening on a global scale. We didn't need to see what was going on in every city. Just those brief 10-15 second shots were, wow, we're really in the hands of a master here.
I would have loved to see more of that as well. More of that and less of those office talks.
There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of violence in this. We had people storming pharmacies and banks, people getting into fights at the groceries. Scary stuff.
For me, my favorite scene, I would have to say, is that ending. As I said before, I thought it was a very somber note to end on, but it wrapped it up nicely, nice enough. But yeah, I feel like although that scene was good, I still walked out thinking, I just can't recommend this. So yeah, look, that's my favorite scene, but bear in mind, I didn't have many favorite scenes in general. So Jackson, we can't talk about, this is the segment where we talk about box office predictions. Obviously, this is a 9-10-year-old film, but we can talk about how it's become this number one film all of a sudden and globally and how people are flocking to their TVs to watch this thing. Obviously, because we're going through this pandemic at the moment, they're probably getting a lot of sales, digital sales, aren't they?
Absolutely. This would be cleaning up. I know that right now it's sitting at about second on Warner Brothers catalog. So 135. Yeah, absolutely. 135 million gross to the global box office. Well, in home media and on streaming services, it'd be earning them a big buck. How does this fit into this whole virus outbreak genre? And if you wouldn't recommend this, what would you recommend audiences be watching right now?
That's the thing. This is where it's conflicting because I would recommend this for people that want to know more about this sort of pandemic and what could occur, but I don't think it's a good movie. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. There'd be more truth going on in this fictional film than you'd get watching the news for 5 or 10 minutes.
True. If you want a more entertaining film of an outbreak, I like I Am Legend or 28 Days Later. Those sort of films are set the mood. Obviously, I probably wouldn't go The Happening. Have you seen that?
Maybe we could cover that one in an episode.
We can stay away from that, but
not the trees.
When I think of those sort of films, I think I Am Legend. That stands out of the pile for entertainment purposes while telling a decent story. For this, it's telling a decent story but doesn't have the entertainment value. So as long as people know going in that this is going to be a slow burn, you're going to feel you're going to be confronted by some scary situations, and it's going to leave you on a somber note. You're not going to be jumping with glee after this film.
Certainly not. If you want another entertaining watch that still leaves a bit of a sour taste, I recommend Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys. That's another sci-fi thriller with a virus outbreak. Bruce Willis is in that one, and plenty of twists and turns. We absolutely should cover that in a future episode.
I think that could be one of the ones we cover while the theaters are closed. As you know, guys,
cinemas everywhere done.
Cinemas everywhere in Australia right now. I got an email this week that all theaters will be closed for 8 weeks. So we're talking Milan, Quiet Place Part 2. What else, Jackson? Wonder Woman.
Fast and Furious 9.
Fast 9. All these films we were going to cover have been cancelled. So obviously we are going to change our plans. But yeah, it's a very interesting time, Jackson, isn't it?
Certainly.
On day one, there were 2 people, and then 4, and then 16. In 3 months, it's 1 billion. That's where we're headed.
They're calling out the National Guard. They're moving the president underground. People will panic.
Get away!
It will tip over.
The truth is being kept from the world.
Cook your samples, destroy everything.
All right, Jackson. So I think we've really dissected this film as much as we can. What are our final ratings for this one?
7 out of 10 coughing fits on public transport.
7 out of 10 from Jackson. Can you explain how you came to that rating in the end?
It's hard to really give this an 8 when I can't quite recommend it to a mass audience. Had there been some more touching scenes, had it ended on a more complete note, had it not been so cold, frightening and chilling, I might have been able to go a little bit higher. For me, I wanted something else to really become invested in. It was still a very entertaining watch, and I'm glad I sat down and watched it.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to give the film a 6 out of 10. Maybe harsh to some. I know there's been a lot of 5-star, 10 out of 10 ratings wherever I've gone, but there's also been a lot of poor ratings. We're not influenced by any of these ratings. We, as Jackson, we're very honest here at the We Watch This podcast. I just think it had an incredible, not incredible, but a good first half. It built the tension. It was building those characters. It was building Kate Winslet and Matt Damon. And, it just, in that second half, fell flat. The sudden vaccine was found, and, the writing went off in the loop, and unfortunately I couldn't recommend it to a mass audience or even a smaller audience. Maybe in the pandemic we are now, I can recommend it to people interested, but if this wasn't going on, this wouldn't be a film I could recommend. So 6 out of 10 from me and a 7 from Jackson. So there we have it, guys. Contagion review. Some interesting perspectives from you and me, Jackson. We're going to take this moment to thank our sponsor for today's episode, Displate. Displate are thick metal plates with gallery quality prints on them. They easily stick to your wall and look great in any room or office environment. I just got another 2, so we've got 5 in the studio right now, all gaming, and we've got 5 more movie ones to come. Jackson, you want a couple in your room. We're going to get that sorted as well. But guys, we've got a code for you to use for 21% off. It's OFF21. So if you want to use that, you can get 21% off right now. Very big discount. Displates have an easy magnet mounting system. Doesn't require any nails, tapes, or power tools, and they look great, as I said. So, guys, support them. They support us. Displate code OFF21.
And while you're at it, using your OFF21 code, why not pick up some classic Matt Damon posters like Stuck on You, Eurotrip, and Team America World Police?
I love how you chime in every time. That's brilliant. Before we dive into what we watched this week, Jackson, let's just quickly touch base on this pandemic and what it means for the podcast. Obviously, we only just started this thing.
Have we? I thought we're 10 episodes in. Certainly feels like it.
Unfortunately, we're only 4 in, Jackson.
We got a long way to go.
We got a long way to go to 10. We're going to have to switch things up, Jackson. Obviously, we had a Quiet Place 2 plan. We had Milan plan. I think what we'll do is you can pick two, I'll pick two.
I get to pick two?
Yep, you pick two, I'll pick two, and we'll put them to a vote.
Oh, it's a vote.
And the audience can pick what they want to see us do next. What do you think?
Make sure you pick my two.
Make sure you pick Jackson's two, he says.
Perfect.
And
yeah, so we'll have these polls available on Instagram. So you want to check out at Dan Allen Movies for the polls. And while you're there, at We Watch This Podcast and at Marshall on Film with an underscore.
That's us on Instagram. And obviously we're on other platforms as well. But Instagram is the one for right now, guys. So that is what's going to happen in the future episodes. Jackson, what did you watch this week?
This week, Dan, I watched The Accountant.
The Accountant, Ben Affleck, with our acclaimed director from The Way Back, which we covered a couple episodes ago.
Absolutely. I was pretty inspired by The Way Back. Hey, it wasn't the film for me, but I thought, let's give The Accountant a go. I'd heard pretty good things, and on the whole, it was a decent enough watch.
Yeah? What was your rating in the end?
It didn't blow me away. I had that rated at 6 out of 10 dogs playing poker. And at 2 hours, it was overstuffed.
Definitely.
4 or 5 too many plot threads.
Definitely.
Too many leading characters all battling for screen time when really we could have had a tighter, more coherent package at 2 or 3. Maybe save stuff for a sequel. I sat down and watched it with a few friends, and after it was done, I asked them, could this be remade into a 10-part Netflix series? Absolutely. Would it be better as a 10-part Netflix series? Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. I hadn't thought of that perspective. That's actually really interesting. Sometimes these films are better served as TV series. So, we've seen The Witcher recently. That could have easily been a movie, but they chose to do TV.
Thank God it wasn't.
Yeah, and they chose to do the TV, and it worked out well. So that was John Berthol was in that with Ben Affleck.
John Berthol, Ben Affleck, J.K. Simmons, John Lithgow. It was very much a murderer's row of character actors. So we had some great talents on screen, but not quite enough. And when we talk about too many plot threads, one real momentum-halting sequence kind of like towards the end of the third act, where J.K. Simmons has this awesome kind of noir influence flashback to his days dealing with the accountant when he was younger as a detective. And it was like, hang on, where did this come from in the film? I thought we were wrapping up to this thrilling conclusion. We had some tight action sequences.
Yeah.
Something like that would have been right at home in a 35-40 minute Netflix episode or saved for another sequel. On the whole, though, like I said, 6 out of 10 dogs playing poker. It was a decent enough
For me,
watch.
it was 6 as well. Accountant, I've seen that. I think I saw that in the cinema. For me, John Berthol carried the film. I love that guy in everything he's in. I thought he's
very smooth operator.
I think he's one of the best actors going. He's just been in a lot. He's been in Fury.
Everything he pops up in, he's a good talent.
And I'm really looking forward to another film that he's got coming up. I believe it's called Stingray. Him and Joel Edgerton battling it out in a crime drama. I think that's going to be a real one to watch. So he's a fantastic actor. He's been doing a lot of good stuff recently. Yeah, 6 out of 10 from me, Jackson, as well. We finally agree on one, eh?
We got there. Dan, what did you watch this week?
Jackson, I took a different turn to you. I didn't watch much this week, but I took to Amazon. And I was floating around and seeing what to watch on Amazon, and I stumbled upon a show called The Night Manager. Have you heard of it?
The Night Manager? No, please indulge me.
This is starring Tom Hiddleston and Hugh Laurie.
Whoa.
This is exclusive to Amazon, I believe. It's an ex-British soldier hired by an intelligence officer as a covert operator. He's also,
Those are some $1 million words right there.
He's a night manager as well, bear that in mind. He's tasked with infiltrating the inner circle of Roper, a secret arms dealer, and also his lover's killer. Now, I'm reading the synopsis here, Jackson.
You don't say.
It sounds generic.
You don't say.
Listen.
I thought that was just rolling off the tongue.
There's a point to this, okay?
All right.
There's a point to this. Why, did that sound generic to you?
Yes.
It isn't. That is the point of me rolling that off. This sounds generic, but the way they set it up, the acting, the feel of it, it's more of a, I would say, mystery thriller sort of style.
Okay.
It's not that action, hard-hitting action that it's generic action that it sounds like. This is more of a mystery, a battle of wits, if you'll indulge me on that. But
Okay, should I watch this?
And look, I'm only 2 episodes in, so bear in mind there's still 4 to go. It's a six episode tight, neat package.
Nice.
The
Brits do love their tight, neat packages.
And this is, yeah, we're gonna have no UK viewers after you're done. Tom Hiddleston and Hugh Laurie also produce it as well, so they've got a hand in the pile. But it's really intrigued me. It's got me in. That first episode's quite gripping, and I really recommend you check it out, Jackson. I think you'll really enjoy it.
Fantastic. I'll watch it after you watch Evil Dead 2.
Beautiful. Thanks for listening, guys. That'll be it for today's episode 4. We appreciate you all for tuning in. Of course, follow us on our social media platforms, especially Instagram. And
we'd love to hear your feedback.
We'd love to hear your feedback. Dan Allen Movies on Instagram. I'm at Marshall on Film, Jackson, and the podcast is We Watch This Podcast. Thanks for listening, guys. As always, stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Stay indoors.